Hello, my name is Justin Bright, and welcome to Kerbal Space Program version 10.1 in my next small step RP-1 career mode playthrough. And here we are just wrapping up a real quick geostationary contract mission where I'm going to put a satellite in orbit, and we'll be starting up that burn in just a couple seconds. But yeah, so I'm just kind of cranking these out while I didn't have a whole lot of other missions going on. But it looks like we are going to be doing all kinds of new stuff. I have lots of new contracts and also missions. I kind of went down and took a list of all the things that I need to get done to accomplish all of the objectives that we're looking at. And remember, our primary objective and everything that we are driving toward is getting crew out into deep space. That's kind of the basic gist of everything that we are attempting here. So we are trying to get out into deep space with crew, so we need to be working on building bigger and better stations, and also building ground habitats for various bodies. So, for example, we have a lunar moon-based mission that we've taken, and so I'm working on that. I'm working on building longer duration vehicles for Earth orbit hanging outs, I guess. Long Earth orbit missions, that sort of thing. So yeah, we've got another Apollo craft coming up that I'm working on slowly. I figure it's always good to kind of just have one of those in the can, basically. We have the Lunette Powerup mission, so we're going to be sending out a power truss out to Lunette Station in orbit of the moon. We have Orb Lab version 2 is going to be coming up, and we went over that in design last episode, and that's going to be either a replacement or an extension to our current Orb Lab low Earth space station. We have Visult 2, which is a replacement of that Visult satellite that I launched last time because I had some very friendly folks in the Discord tell me that it was not going to work in any way, and I will show you what I mean. So if we go over, we're just waiting for the contract to finish at this point. If we go over to Visult 1 and look at the data, it's clogged. It's got 5.5 gigabytes of data logged from the Photography 4 experiment, and that is not going to get any better as far as transfer speed. It's currently transmitting at 1.9 kilobits per second, pardon me, and it's never really going to catch up. Like, I don't think it's ever going to really catch up because all it has, remember, is a little UHF immunotron antenna that it is using to bounce either direct from a DSN or ground station that it's passing over, or it is the relaying to one of our geostationary satellites. So that is not going to work for what I want it to do. So what I've done is I've built a brand shiny new version of that same exact spacecraft with bigger, better antennas, because we have X-band communications going to be finishing in just a couple of days, just 16 hours actually. And that is going to allow us to use the Visult 2 X-band satellite, so it's going to have an X-band dish on it, and then I'm going to put up a new geostationary communications network with X-band communications. So yeah, that's what we have coming up. So I've kind of built a couple things and got that going, but it's always good to keep the vehicle assembly building running, so do things like this and just get a good chunk of cash for something very simple and easy. All right, hopping back to the ground, oh my gosh, we have gotten a lot of science. So yeah, we have 36 upgrades to dole out. I think our R&D is still working at a pretty decent clip. Let's see, 40 days, 50 days. Yeah, that's still going pretty good, I think. So yeah, let's just put a bunch of points into our R&D, or into our vehicle assembly building. We'll put 21 of the points into rate 1 and then 2. There we go. Now we've got really cranking stuff out, which is really nice. Because we're researching at a fair clip, I think. I don't know that adding a whole bunch of that is going to have as much effect on how fast we get new stuff as would if we were to just like keep cranking out contracts and new rockets and that sort of thing. So hard to say. And Boop. All right, we have we have X-band communications now. We have upgraded our tracking station one more time. I think right now. Correct. We need massive scale communications to go any further, but that gives us X-band communications on our new satellites. So yes, this is. Yeah, there we go. Look at that. We are now getting 1.19 megabits per second with this big S-band dish. And that is almost 4 times as much as we would have if we were doing the same level dish with an S-band. So yeah, I'm hoping that we're going to be able to bounce the signal up from the new Visalt satellite to this shiny new ComSat X constellation, and then bounce it back down 100% of the time to the, what do you call it, the Deep Space Network stations, which is going to give us the maximum throughput, in theory, at least. That's kind of what I think is going to happen. So, but yeah, we just now unlocked that tracking station, so this is possible, and this is also going to make it possible for us to make our Voyager 2 launch date. So I'm going to build a probe that is going to be kind of like the Voyager 2 spacecraft, which is the more famous of the well, not necessarily more famous. The Voyager 1 and 2 spacecraft were the ones that were flung out around Jupiter and got gravity assists from a lot of the large gas giants in the outer solar system and used that to propel themselves out of the solar system. And I am planning to try to hit something around this launch date so that I can do something similar. I already have the Pioneer Jupiter that is going to be doing something similar because Jupiter is just unbelievable in terms of gravity assists. But this is like the canonical Voyager 2 launch date. Like, this is when it actually happened. So I figure even in the Kerbal Space Program patch Conics approximation of orbital mechanics, we will probably see something really cool when we try to that launch window. So I'm just kind of keeping my mind on that. It's not going to be a very big probe that we're throwing, so I'm not going to need like a big Paladin rocket or anything like that, but so it's not going to take too terribly long to build, but it is something that I need to keep in mind. I'm just trying to like run down as much of the best new science as I can before we actually have to build it. All right, so we have unlocked 1976 to 1980 Hydrolox engines. We are really starting to move into the future as far as our technology is concerned. Really exciting. So we unlocked the HG3 engine, which is a stepping stone between the J2 and the RS-25. So that seems like very modern and futuristic. These numbers all look lovely, but I'd have to compare them side by side to our J2S to see if it's actually, or how much better it actually is, if it is at this stage. We also got the M1 sea level, which I have had a hard time figuring out what to do with. I did some playing around with the M1 engines, because you get the regular M1 back here, and then you get the M1 sea level over here. And I think that you're basically supposed to use those in conjunction with the monster AJ260 solid rockets. And that would be some kind of something, but I have no idea what application I would have for that. I'm fairly certain that that's going to be something I'm not going to really need until I'm actually trying to launch a massive Mars space station and send it on its way in a single launch. So yeah, I'll play with that, but yeah, we're unlocking some real big stuff. There's also the J2T Aerospike engine, which is an interesting Hydrolox, throttleable Hydrolox engine that has pretty good surface level specific impulse, as well as really decent vacuum impulse. Seems to sacrifice on the high end to improve the low end. Has a couple of ignitions. It's throttleable. So the idea is that you could probably make a single-staged orbit using an Aerospike, but it's just never actually been done. So anyways, that's a really cool thing. Maybe I'll be able to make some kind of really neat single-stage rocket that's able to like launch my geostationary payloads. But the trick is always that, you know, having such a high performance thing is almost always going to be a lot more expensive than chucking a Kerolox rocket into the ocean. Not to say that I was going to be able to make this reusable. I don't know that that's possible, especially in RP-1. But anyways, I'm getting way on a tangent here, but that's an interesting thing. So we have a couple HG3 configs here, and a couple more M1 configs, and LR129, which I don't actually know what that one is. So anyways, that is 1976-1980 Hydrolox engines, which we have now unlocked. So not sure how much exciting... Well, the big exciting thing for me is to try out the HD3 and what kind of performance I can get out of that as a stage engine. It's also throttleable a little bit, which is interesting. 2 ignitions, slightly throttleable. That's kind of cool. So yeah, that could lead to a variety of upper stage, not like second stage use, I think. So yeah, really exciting stuff. All right, time to check in with the Martian Moonhopper to see how we are doing as far as science. So let's see, we are uploading and we don't have any kind of transfer issues on this one. Looks like we still have 18 more days before we are actually finished with the science. Not sure why that didn't work out, but that's fine. Well, actually, is that fine? Mars Earth transfer window is in 140 days, so spending another 20 here is not a bad thing, but it's also not like free, I guess. We are going to have to be worried about that here pretty soon, and it's not that much science, but I think it should be okay. I think we should be able to make it. We may just have to cut short the science we do Demos, but I don't see any real reason not to spend another couple of days finishing this up. So let's do that. Put another 18 days and 2 hours. And then we'll come back to that here shortly. And liftoff of the Lunette Powerup spacecraft that we are sending out to hook up with our Lunette Station over in lunar orbit. So yeah, this should be a relatively simple one. The actual power truss that I have put together is pretty darn simple. So I'm just gonna do a lot of fast forwarding through this, and we will get this on moving. All right, so here we are, just preparing for our translunar injection. At some point, I must have forgotten to put actual, what do you call it, fuel for our thrusters in the the avionics, or at least when I updated it, must have happened that way. So I'm having to use I have to use the lunar orbit insertion stage to round, but we are now departing from Earth. So yeah, as you can see, this thing is just dead simple. It's just a big stick with solar panels on the end. And once we get pushed out of Earth orbit and separate this stage, then I can activate that and play around with this just a little bit. But that is, yeah, that's really all there is to it. It just needs a little bit more power, and that's something that we're taking into account with future space stations. We are dramatically over-provisioning power on every space station that we're going to be using from now on, with the idea that they're going to be docking with spacecraft like Apollo capsules that are going to have huge power draw. And you may or may not be able to actually turn that power draw off all the way. So we want to make sure that we have the power to sustain whatever extra vehicle comes here, so they can turn off their fuel cell power while they're in orbit, just hanging out in the station. So that's kind of the idea here, and that is leading to the design philosophy of just putting bigger and bigger solar panels, base station, and long duration habitat type things. So there we go. Now we have our encounter with the moon. That's basically all we need to see here. So now I'm just going to go back to station. You're going to target Lunette Station and see that we are going the way. But there's nothing else I need to use this stage for, so I am going to, since we are on a collision course, we are going to just separate. And there we go. So there we go. Now we are off and on our own power. Everything is lovely. Far station. We have 31 days of charge, even if we don't put out our solar panel at all. Yeah, so one small issue is that we are coming in retrograde, so I am just pushing our, flipping our, the point at which we are going to enter into it around by just pushing retrograde. Then when we get there, we will just have a relatively easy rendezvous, hopefully. Go. And that's all there is to it. So since we have plenty of battery, I'm just going to get this packed up for now. Alright, one thing that I wanted to check in on, since I've been getting some notifications, is I want to check in on how our Visalt 1 is doing. I know that we're not going to be able to do everything with this, and we're never going to be able to get all this data back home. We're up to 13 gigs, and just look at all this stuff. All needs to get sent home. So yeah, I might just turn off the photography experiment and just try to catch up on some of the other stuff. No, I don't know how much it matters. But in any case, one thing that I can do is I can disable one of these scan sets, because you see that we have the high altimetry is done. So we don't need to have that on anymore. Improve TV is probably going to be vis low. Radar antenna is going to be high. I think that's the one that I can turn. Ultra resolution is going to be vis high, which we don't have the power for because we're working on vis low. But yeah, that's at least one more type of. Yeah, this gets us the high resolution altimetry, which gives you all this really far as height map of Earth, basically. Which is neat. I'm not sure that that's actually useful for us, but it's very cool to be able to do. Yeah, so I was able to just turn off one of these. Worried about power because it has been draining and give me some battery. Yeah, it's still sending down science. It's just going to take many more years than it actually should. Or than I expected, I should say. It's taking exactly as long as it was always going. I just didn't know. And that's my bad. So yeah, it is chugging away, but we are going to set up a replacement for it not too long. Much more power and much more everything. Much more communications. We should be just about at the ascending node now. Just burning anti-normal to bring our inclination down to nothing, which make it what we're looking at as far as our encounter. You can already see that we've gotten our intersect 2 there. Alright, so 0.0 degrees inclination, just fantastic. So now, if I throw on this encounter, you can see the second encounter flying around. And we want to go as low as we can, and then go up from here to find where the earliest is that we're going to have our encounter, and about here. There we go. Half a kilometer, 168 meters per second relative velocity, 628 meters per second burn to insert into that orbit. Easy as that. Alright, so we are heading down, and yeah, like I said, I do want to do a mix of building new space stations and building new cool stuff, as well as extending stuff. Like, launching whole spacecraft with large rockets is one thing, but then the next really cool thing is actually doing orbital assembly over time. That's always a lot of fun. So stuff like this is pretty cool. It would probably be easier to just... Man, I love the waterfall balloon. Sorry, it's just distractingly good. Yeah, so we'll be doing some orbital assembly. It is a big pain in the ass, and sometimes it's not actually necessary or helpful. So yeah, we'll have to see how much I do of that compared to just launching in one. There are very big parts that I could use to launch very big spacecraft to get lots and lots of mass into orbit in a single go. So I'll probably be doing some of that as well to minimize how many times I have to build stuff and then rendezvous like this. Because this is, like I said, pretty damn cool, but also it's a little bit more work than just launching a bigger rocket. You know what I mean? All right, so we are swinging around, and it looks like we are going to have a really nice encounter. We are coming in. We are going to have plenty of signal, and we are also going to have sun. I could not have asked for a better encounter than that. Right, so there's the little load as the thing gets in range. We're about 24 kilometers away, so we are going to point relative velocity negative. And to zero this out, it's 170 meters per second, so I'm actually just going to match velocities at closest approach, 168. It's going to take 20 seconds to do that. And our encounter is in 1 minute and 40 seconds. So, yeah, we're going to do that a little bit early because it's going to be about 20 seconds to make this burn. And we want to finish it ahead, just a little bit ahead of time, so it doesn't shoot past us quite like it often seems to. So I'm going to start this burn at about 22 seconds and then let the spin up of the engine take care of the rest. 5, 4, 2, RCS to ullage, and the engine is lit, and we are burning down to meet our target. Two kilometers away. All right, this was a little bit early, so I'm going to cease. That's the trick. Like, it's a little bit tricky to nail this exactly right. We are getting closer now. And here we go. Ah, perfect. 65 meters away. Could not have asked for any better than that. All right, so we are going to control from the end of this little truss, and I want to put this, pretty sure I have one option, just on the end, so that is where it's going to go. Make absolutely certain we are targeting the correct thing, and we are going to parallel minus, make sure that we are pointing away. There you go. You can see that that lines our orange circle up absolutely perfectly. Now it's just a matter of guiding us, guiding the prograde marker down towards the green. And as I get closer, I'm going to back off just a little bit so that I can make sure that I'm rotated the way that I want to be. Because these panels cannot spin around at all. Like, they can't... they don't follow the sun. Okay? I actually have to point it at the sun for it to work. And this, I've kind of put on sideways, but I'm pretty sure they track the sun. I guess we're going to find out once I actually extend them. All right, we are locked on in one direction. Down distance about 10 meters of horizontal distance, and then are just matching up lateral attitude, but we are just matching up our axes basically. overshot, so we are just swinging back just slightly, but this is putting so much gas on it. All right, so as we are getting into this, I want to rotate to be, let's see, needs to be basically in the same line. Yeah, so it looks like 90 degrees is the correct roll. So I'm going to plug in 90 here to see if that puts us in right, and that's not it at all. How about 0? There we go. That's the right one. Okay, now that we are done rotating, I can actually resume our approach without getting all confused. But yeah, that will keep this aesthetically nice and in line with the rest of the spacecraft, because this is going to attach and then we're going to. So in my other series, my multiplanetary series, species series, goodness, I had a like the construction docking ports that came with the MKS mods actually have like a way where they would collapse into each other and explode, and then just like weld this part to this part directly, which is so cool, and I really wish that I had that now. I haven't thought about that in a while, but now that I'm thinking about it, it's like, oh, I missed that quite a bit, actually. All right, so we are linked up, and we are in line, and everything looks great. So let's go ahead and turn off the RCS, because they are going to be dormant forever. I would remove them if I had the ability to do so, but I don't, so I'm just not going to stress about it. But yeah, this is it there. So let's now that we've finished this up, I can go ahead and undock the transport bus that we have been using. And this little guy right here, farewell, you've done a great service. You have a huge amount of Delta V remaining, but I'm going to use it to point you at the ground. And off with ya. See ya, friend. Okay, so this is now our brand new shiny spacecraft that is able to hopefully maintain much better power situation. So let's see about first activating our avionics. There we go. Thankfully, I still have enough room for power. So let's push these our new solar panels out. Not deploy while stowed. Well, I promise they're not. Maybe saving and reloading will help. All right, I've reloaded, so let's take a look. Okay, there we go. That fixes it. And you can see that these do rotate to match the sun, which is great. However, it's going to be a little bit hard to get full sun on both. See? So what I'm going to do, that stuff, see just how ridiculous much extra solar power we are getting. But this is completely occluded. This one is getting us 1 electric charge per second. Getting us 1? Oh, is it? It's this way. Okay. That's actually pretty bad. Gosh. Okay. That's fine. I'll figure something out. Yeah, so this is going to have to sit at kind of a weird, slight angle where not everything is going to get 100%. Not everything is going to get 100% exposure to the sun. But what I can do is something like this, where I just kind of push up. All right, so step 1 is point directly at the sun. Step 2, we are going to do a still rotation and do a bit of rotating, because I have a plan here. Point straight up and down so that we are kind of level, not level, we are perpendicular to our axis is perpendicular to the orbit that we are in, and I am going to push radial normal a little bit, and there, just like a little bit normal, and then that gets us 97% exposure on these solar panels, which is getting us something like 0.345 kilowatts each, and then these have 100% exposure, and that gets us 1 EC per second each which is very exciting and gives us plenty of power now for any future vessels that come to dock. We are able to really get a lot of good power attached there, and we just have to hold this slightly goofy position, but really it's fine. Like, this is pretty good, and that's a good look for it. And yeah, and that will help inform future designs as we deal with the need for more and more electric charge on vessels. But that is all the time that we have for now. That was a pretty successful mission. One thing I want to say is I'm really sorry about the audio quality. I was fiddling with my microphone mount before I started recording this large batch of material, and I accidentally turned down my microphone input volume by a huge degree, and so it ends up putting a lot of my voiceover below the threshold for actually being picked up at all, which is why it sounded the way it did. I'm debating whether, like, because it's mostly, you can mostly make out what's going on, but it's really not up to my standards. But I also don't really have the time to re-record hours and hours of footage. So I'm debating if I end up doing like some kind of like high-speed voiceover dubbing of what I've already done, instead of dealing with the choppy audio, but we'll see how it goes. Let me know what you think down in the comments below. If you enjoyed this episode, please like and subscribe, and I will see you next time.